Manhattan sparkled with warm lights that December 24th evening. The streets of the Upper East Side gleamed as if competing with the stars, while luxury cars paraded past the most exclusive restaurants. Inside the elegant The Golden Star, the atmosphere was almost surreal. Candles glowing over linen tablecloths, crystal glasses tinkling softly, refined laughter floating through the air. At the center table, dressed in an ivory pantsuit and a discreet pearl necklace, Rebecca Hayes looked like the embodiment of success. 40 years old, her name appeared in financial magazines and leadership columns. She'd been recognized as Woman of the Year by an international foundation, and her real estate firm kept growing. To this year of victories, she toasted, raising her glass of white wine. Her husband, Michael, a lawyer with a sober demeanor, smiled discreetly. Beside him, little Connor, barely 7 years old, played with his napkin while trying not to fall asleep. "Mom, are we almost done?" he asked in a sleepy voice. Rebecca caressed his head tenderly. "Almost, sweetheart. Just dessert." Dinner flowed between sophisticated dishes and elegant conversations until a presence shattered the harmony like broken glass. A girl, painfully thin, barefoot, with tangled hair and eyes like dark wells, timidly crossed through the restaurant door. She wore a dirty dress too big for her body and held an almost empty plastic bag. "Could you give me your leftovers, please?" Her voice was barely a whisper, but it was heard clearly in the sudden silence. The diners turned, horrified. Some frowned, others looked away. The restaurant manager rushed toward her, stammering apologies to the customers. Rebecca felt a pang in her chest, but quickly smothered it. Her reputation, her contacts, her public image, everything could come crashing down in seconds. "Please get her out of here," she ordered the manager, without raising her voice, but with implacable coldness. "With all respect, ma'am, she's just asking for food," whispered the waiter who had served the truffled turkey minutes before. "I don't care. This isn't the place for charity," Rebecca stated, without looking directly at her. The manager approached the girl and gently took her arm, guiding her toward the exit. She didn't protest. She let herself be led as if she already knew this script by heart. Before crossing the door, she turned back just once. That look. Rebecca wouldn't forget that look for a long time. 3 days later, on December 27th, the New York sky dawned gray and freezing. Rebecca was in her office, organizing year-end meetings, when her cell phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Mrs. Rebecca Hayes?" asked a male voice on the other end of the line. "Yes, that's me. Who's calling?" "We're calling from Mount Sinai Hospital. Mrs. Dorothy Martinez is in palliative care. She's asked to see you. Says it's urgent." Rebecca fell silent. Mrs. Dorothy. She hadn't heard that name in years. She'd been her housekeeper for more than a decade, almost a second mother during times when ambition consumed her and her personal life was secretly falling apart. "What's wrong with her?" she finally asked. "Terminal cancer. Advanced metastasis. She has hours, maybe days." The clock read 11:15. Rebecca looked out the window of her midtown office. She hesitated for a moment, but put down her planner, grabbed her coat and headed to the hospital. Mount Sinai smelled of disinfectant and resignation. Rebecca walked through the hallways with firm steps, but her heart was pounding. She didn't know why she felt that knot in her stomach. This wasn't just any visit. Room 214 was small and poorly lit. On the bed, a fragile figure, reduced to bones and skin, breathed with difficulty. Her eyes, however, still had that stern brightness from other times. "Rebecca," Dorothy whispered in an almost inaudible voice. "I'm here," she said, sitting beside the bed. "Thank you for coming. I couldn't leave without telling you something. Something I can't carry with me anymore." Rebecca swallowed. "You don't have to say anything. Rest." Yes, I do," she interrupted with a strength that seemed borrowed. "The girl, the one from the restaurant, the one you threw out, that was Emma." Rebecca felt as if the air in the room had evaporated. "What are you saying? She was your daughter. That girl is your daughter." Her world came crashing down. 12 years earlier, Rebecca had made an unthinkable decision. She was pregnant by a married man, a prominent politician who promised support and then disappeared. Her career was just taking off. Scandals ruined reputations, so she chose to hide her pregnancy, give birth in secret, and put the baby up for adoption, all arranged with help from a discreet agency. Dorothy was the only one who knew the truth, and who cared for her the first months before handing her over. How do you know it was her? I recognized her. I saw her weeks ago on the street. I followed her. She talked to me. She told me her name. She told me her adoptive parents died in an accident, that the orphanage was held, and she escaped. She's been living alone since then, eating from the trash, sleeping on the streets. Rebecca couldn't breathe. Images swirled in her head. The ragged girl, her weak voice, her gaze. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I promised to respect your decision, but I can't anymore. I can't die knowing she's alone. That you saw her and didn't recognize her. A tear fell down Rebecca's cheek. Where is she? Where did you last see her? Downtown, around the Bowery, looking for warmth among cardboard boxes. Dorothy squeezed her hand one last time. You can change her fate. There's still time. Rebecca left the hospital with trembling legs. Outside, the sky was beginning to darken. For the first time in years, she felt she'd lost control of her perfect world, and the only thing she wanted was to find that girl. Her daughter. The air in the hospital room seemed denser than the rest of the building. The heart monitor marked a weak, irregular rhythm. Dorothy, bedridden, had her eyes closed, but her face revealed a struggle between physical pain and the urgency of her soul. Rebecca, sitting beside her, remained paralyzed by what she'd just heard. It can't be, she whispered, more to herself than to the sick woman. It can't be her. Dorothy slowly opened her eyes and nodded. It's her, Emma, your daughter. The girl you gave away. Rebecca felt something inside her break with a silent sound. The image of the dark-eyed girl standing in the restaurant, alone and trembling, hit her with unexpected violence. She'd seen her, she'd spoken to her, she'd rejected her. But how? She stammered. How is it possible she ended up like this? I gave her up for adoption to a good family. They swore they'd care for her. Dorothy breathed deeply, each word coming out as if dragging a stone from her chest. They did, for a while. They lived in Albany, good people. But 6 months ago, a car accident on the highway. Rollover. Both died. Emma survived. But there were no other relatives. They sent her to a state orphanage. Rebecca put her hand to her mouth. Why didn't they tell me? Because that was the deal. You didn't want to know anything. You said you wanted to forget. Dorothy's words fell on her like fire on skin. It was true. 12 years earlier, pregnant by a married, powerful man with connections in high circles, Rebecca had felt her world caving in. Her company was just getting off the ground. She had the media breathing down her neck, investors trusting her image. A scandal would have destroyed her. I can't have this baby, she told Dorothy one night, in a low voice, with tears and determination. Are you sure? The woman replied, who had raised her like a daughter since her early years in the city. I don't have a choice, Rebecca responded, without meeting her eyes. During the pregnancy, she hid. She faked extended business trips. She gave birth at a discreet clinic in New Jersey under a fake name. Dorothy was the one who held the baby for the first time. Emma, she whispered, caressing her forehead with weathered hands. Even if you don't stay with us, may your name have strength. Tears began to flow from Rebecca's eyes as the memory unfolded like a forgotten book. She decided to bury that chapter, but the past somehow always finds a way to return. And the orphanage? She asked in a raspy voice. How did she escape? Dorothy grimaced in pain. Abuse, punishment, hunger. I saw her a few weeks ago by chance, in a park near the Lower East Side. I recognized her instantly. She looks just like you at that age. I offered her food, took her home for a few days. She told me her story, then she left, didn't want to get into trouble. She was afraid I'd return her to child services. Rebecca clenched her fists. And I threw her out. I threw her out like she was garbage. You didn't know, Dorothy murmured without reproach. But now you do. A thick silence fell. The heart monitor's beeping became more irregular. Dorothy held her hand with what little strength she had left. "Promise me you'll look for her, that you won't leave her alone again." Rebecca closed her eyes. She couldn't promise such a thing. She couldn't even breathe properly. But there was a truth burning inside her, as strong as the pain. "I promise." Dorothy sighed, as if releasing a weight she'd carried too long. Minutes later, she fell into a deep sleep. The nurse came in and administered a new dose of morphine. She wouldn't wake up again. Rebecca left the room trembling. The hallway lights seemed to flicker, as if the entire universe was watching her in silence. She leaned her back against the wall, closed her eyes, and let herself slide to the floor. She cried. She cried like she hadn't in years, like she didn't the day she gave up Emma. Like she didn't when that powerful man turned his back on her, like she didn't when she signed the paper that split her motherhood in two. That night, she didn't go home. She walked for hours. Downtown had another face after nightfall. Store lights contrasted with alley shadows. She saw children sleeping among cardboard, women covering themselves with black bags, men searching for food in garbage cans. She searched for her face. That face she now knew, that she should never have forgotten. Emma's face. At some point she sat on a bench in Washington Square Park, exhausted, covered by a silk scarf that no longer protected her from anything. She checked her cell phone. Several missed calls from Michael. Messages asking why she hadn't come home. None of them mattered. The cold seeped into her bones, but it felt right, deserved, like a penance that was just beginning. The next morning, she returned home. Michael was waiting in the kitchen, looking unhappy. "Where were you? Connor asked for you all night." Rebecca had no energy for detours. "Dorothy is dying. She called me. She told me everything." "Everything what?" Rebecca looked at him with red eyes. "Emma, my daughter, the one I had before you, she's alive. She was the girl from the restaurant. I threw her out and without knowing." Michael went pale. "Are you saying that you have a lost daughter?" "She's not lost anymore. She's out there, and I'm going to find her." "Are you hearing yourself? What do you think the media will say if this gets out? You have a reputation, Rebecca." She looked at him with a coldness he didn't recognize. "You know what's worse than losing a reputation, losing a soul, and I don't want to keep losing." Rebecca climbed the stairs without looking back. She opened the closet, pulled out a thick coat and a backpack. Inside, she packed documents, cash, and an old black and white photo, her with Dorothy, newborn Emma in her arms. She looked at the image and spoke quietly. "I'm going to find you, daughter, and this time, I'm not letting go." The streets of Lower Manhattan teemed with life, but it wasn't the life Rebecca knew. It was another, rawer, more naked, more real. Streets where Christmas colors hung over sidewalks, where hungry children slept, where the aroma of hot pretzels mixed with the stench of sewage, where hope and oblivion crossed at every corner. Rebecca, with her hair pulled back in a tight bun and a beige coat that no longer matched her new reality, walked among street vendors, squeegee guys, children and elderly women, asking, "Have you seen this girl?" She showed a blurry photograph, edited by a designer based on Dorothy's few memories. A thin girl with dark hair and large eyes. Emma. At first no one responded. Some ignored her. Others thought she was from the press. Until at a shelter near the Bronx, an older woman looked her in the eyes and said, "Sometimes she's seen around the Lower East Side, but she hides fast, doesn't trust anyone, moves like a shadow." Rebecca noted the area in her notebook and thanked her with an envelope of money the woman accepted without asking. Meanwhile, at home, the atmosphere was different. Michael barely spoke to her. Their conversations were tense, measured, loaded with silent reproaches. One night, after Rebecca returned dirty, with worn shoes and numb fingers from the cold, he confronted her. "This has to stop. You're crossing the line, Rebecca." She looked at him, exhausted. "The line of what?" "Of doing the right thing." "It's not your responsibility. You gave her up, that's in the past. You're dragging Connor into something that doesn't concern him." Rebecca frowned. "And what kind of mother would I be if I did nothing?" Michael slammed his fist on the table. "And what kind of wife are you, dragging a scandal into this family?" There was a crushing silence. She looked at him sadly. One who won't sit back while her daughter sleeps on the street. The next day, Connor, silent as a cat, hid in the back of his mother's car before she left at dawn. When Rebecca discovered him, they were already in Harlem. "Connor, what are you doing here? It's dangerous. I want to help. Maybe if she sees me, she'll recognize me. Maybe I look like her." Rebecca hesitated. Then she simply hugged him tightly. "Okay, but don't leave my side." Together they visited makeshift shelters, markets infested with noise and smell, alleys where childhood seemed a distant memory. They heard stories of children selling candy at traffic lights, who slept with knives under their pillows, who preferred the street over a home that hurt more than concrete. A young man about 15 with torn clothes and scars on his face told them, "Emma doesn't let herself get caught. She's smart, runs faster than the cops. Sometimes she sings in the subway, other times she collects cardboard. But she doesn't like talking to anyone, says she doesn't trust adults anymore." "And do you trust?" Connor asked, with the innocence of someone who doesn't know fear. The young man looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled sadly. A little bit." One afternoon, while Rebecca was handing out bread and blankets on a street near the Delancey Street station, a girl with braided hair and a lively gaze approached her. "Are you looking for Emma?" Rebecca froze. "You know her?" The girl nodded. "We were friends at the shelter. We escaped together, but she's braver than me. I went back. She didn't want to. She told me if she went back to that place, she'd die." "Do you know where she is?" "No, but she likes to draw. She always carries a notebook. She hid it under her shirt." "Do you have anything of hers?" The girl thought for a second and rummaged through her backpack. She pulled out a sheet folded in 4, wrinkled by time. She handed it over carefully. "She gave it to me before she left, said it was her dream." Rebecca unfolded the sheet. It was a drawing made with crayons, a blonde woman in a blue dress, a small boy with a giant smile, and a dark-haired girl in the center, holding hands with the other two. In the background, a yellow house with red flowers in the window. Written above in childish letters, "My dream family." Rebecca felt something break inside her. Tears flowed without warning. She knelt in the middle of the sidewalk, hugging the drawing against her chest as if it were a piece of Emma herself. "Thank you. Thank you for this," she whispered to the girl with a broken voice. That night, while Connor slept soundly in his bed, Rebecca stared at the drawing in the dim light of her lamp. Each stroke was a silent scream. Her daughter had imagined her, had dreamed of her. Though she'd never known her, somewhere in her heart she still wanted a mother. In the following days, Rebecca doubled her search. She learned to speak with the invisible, with children without documents, with adults without shelter, with candy vendors, with those who never had a voice. She learned to look in their eyes, to sit on sidewalks, to listen without hurry, and with each conversation, her former world became more alien. One morning at Union Square, while talking with a group of kids who cleaned windshields, one of them said, "I saw her 3 days ago. She was sick, coughing a lot. I gave her a jacket. She said she was going to find a park where she could sleep without being kicked out." "Which park, do you remember?" "I think she said Tompkins Square, near the First Avenue station." Rebecca took note. She was going, that same afternoon. But when she arrived, rain was starting to fall and the park was empty. Only wet cardboard and food scraps remained. Emma, once again, had slipped away. That night, Rebecca sat at the dining table with Connor. She served him a cup of hot chocolate and looked him in the eyes. "Thank you for coming with me. I want us to find her, Mum. I don't care if she's my sister or not. I think she is." Rebecca smiled sadly. "I think so too." And looking at the drawing again, now hanging on the wall of her study, she knew she wouldn't stop. Not until she could hug her. Winter had sunk deep into the city. Christmas lights still hung between rusted posts and trees that hadn't known leaves in months. Tompkins Square Park, grey and silent, seemed suspended in time. On a metal bench wrapped in wet newspapers and someone else's sweater, a girl slept curled up like a wounded animal. Rebecca recognized her before seeing her completely. Emma. The tangled hair, the cracked lips, the skin stained by cold and grime, but her eyes, closed and trembling, were the same ones that looked at her that night at the restaurant. Those eyes she'd tried to erase from her memory. She knelt beside her, trembling. "Emma, sweetheart." Her voice broke before finishing. The girl woke with a start. Seeing her, she recoiled like a cornered cat. "Don't come near me," she screamed. "I don't have anything. I don't want to go to child services." Rebecca raised her hands, tears in her eyes. "I'm not going to hurt you, I swear I won't." Emma looked at her with rage. An old rage, deep, built on abandonment, lies, and hunger. "You threw me out. That day, that night. You saw me and did nothing. You treated me like I was trash." The words hit her soul. Rebecca felt her chest falling apart. "I know, I have no excuses, but now, I know who you are, and I don't plan to lose you again." The girl fell to her knees, exhausted. She coughed hard. She had a fever, she was dehydrated. Rebecca took off her coat and wrapped her in it. "I'm going to take you to the hospital, please. Let me help you." And for the first time, Emma didn't run. She was hospitalized for 4 days. She had a severe respiratory infection and serious anemia. During all that time, Rebecca didn't leave her side. She spoke to her gently, told her the truth patiently, without dramatics. She told her about the scared young woman she'd been, about the unforgivable mistake of giving her up, about the guilt that devoured her every night. Emma didn't say much, barely ate. She looked at her with suspicion, but she listened. On the 5th day, Connor entered the room with a box of crayons. "I brought you this. Mum told me you like to draw." Emma looked at him in silence. He smiled. "I draw too, though I'm bad at it. But if you want, I can show you my scribbles." There was a pause. Then Emma took one of the crayons and ran it between her fingers. "Do I look like you?" she asked without looking at him. "Yeah, and Mom too. But you have prettier eyes." For the first time, Emma smiled. Barely. A minimal gesture, but enough to light up the entire room. In the weeks that followed, Rebecca began building something she never thought possible. She enrolled Emma in a public school near home. She bought her supplies, clothes, books. She took her to a psychologist. She offered her a room of her own with a new bed and lavender-colored walls. But more than that, she offered her presence, routine, listening, time. At first, Emma didn't respond. She slept with a backpack next to the bed in case she had to leave again. She ate quickly, as if afraid someone would take her plate away. But little by little, the fear began to yield. One afternoon, while Rebecca was reading her a story, Emma laid her head on her lap without saying a word, and Rebecca understood that this was her true victory, having recovered the right to hug her. Michael couldn't take it. "I can't keep living in this lie," he said one night, packing his suitcase. "This isn't a lie. It's the only truth I've faced with courage in my entire life," Rebecca responded. "You're going to destroy yourself." "Maybe, but if I do, it'll be doing the right thing." Michael left the next day. Connor cried an entire afternoon, but when Emma approached him and hugged him in silence, his crying stopped. "I promise I'm not going to leave," she told him. The press didn't take long to find out. Photos of Rebecca visiting shelters, of Emma entering school, of the founder of a $1 million firm hugging street children generated all kinds of reactions. Some called her a hero, others a hypocrite. But Rebecca didn't respond. She didn't need to justify her rebirth. She founded an organization, Bridge of Light Foundation, dedicated to homeless children. With part of her fortune, she bought an old building in the South Bronx and transformed it into a community center with a cafeteria, classrooms, dorms, and medical care. There, every week, she served food with her own hands. Emma accompanied her, and Connor handed out toys. The afternoon of December 24th arrived like a fulfilled promise. Instead of being on the Upper East Side, Rebecca, Connor, and Emma were at the community center, surrounded by more than 50 children. There was music, hot food, balloons, piñatas, no linen tablecloths, no imported wine, just long tables, genuine laughter, and real hugs. Emma, in her pressed school uniform, walked among the children as if she'd always belonged there. She smiled, she played, she laughed. Rebecca watched her from a corner, saying nothing. Connor approached and handed her a gift wrapped in recycled paper. "It's from Emma. She made it." Rebecca opened the package. It was a new drawing. The same crayon family. A blonde woman, a small boy, a girl in the center. But this time the house had an open door and all three were hugging. Written below, in firmer handwriting, "My real family." Rebecca knelt, and when Emma ran toward her, she hugged her tightly. She said nothing. There was no need. Everything that mattered was there, in that moment. A mother, a daughter, a brother, a new beginning. That night, as the sky lit up with distant fireworks, Emma lay down in her bed and whispered, just before falling asleep, "Thank you for coming for me." Rebecca stroked her hair. "Thank you for letting yourself be found." And in that warm silence, Rebecca understood that true success wasn't in awards, magazine covers, or million-dollar figures. It was there, in the arms of a broken girl who still knew how to dream.